One topic, two people seeking the truth, three arguments. We have prepared our three strongest arguments on today's topic, the existence of God. And at the end of each argument, we will decide which one is stronger. Let's go.
So animal suffering. This one is very important because humans, they suffer, but in the afterlife, you could say they get some redemption. You could also say that humans suffer and there's some growth to it, but with animals, these things don't apply. And if anyone suffers, the animals suffer the most. So it's very hard for me to justify this with loving God in place.
I mean, I believe that humans and animals are fundamentally on different levels. Animals primarily follow their instincts, while humans, they have a way to overpower their instincts by a combination of their intellect, emotions, and will, I would say. So I believe that God gave two different purposes, and that the purpose that he gave for animals is to be of a physical, spiritual guidance towards humans, and that because this is the purpose, there was no other way for God to create animals rather than the way that he created them.
Right, but in this case, he inevitably doomed them to even worse fate than humans without actually being responsible.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so my first argument is that everyone has a belief. So even whether they are scientific, religious, believe in God, believe in money, believe in anything, or believe in nothing at all, even believing in not believing anything is still a form of belief. And everyone wants to reach in a way what they believe is the truth, the absolute truth. And the key, I think, is that everyone has to gather as much evidence as possible to come to a conclusion that, okay, that's the one that according to the evidence is the closest to the absolute truth.
Right, I do think there is some interesting facts to what you said, but I think the biggest problem with this is that when it comes to belief of a god, it comes from you start to explain everything from the perspective of God existing. But if you just believe in science, you are just stating the facts that are so far known, and everything can be measured. So I do think, even though in the vocabulary sense it sounds similar, but I think there's a very big difference between these kind of beliefs.
I would say that in general, science and religion are two different branches. So yes, there is a difference for sure, but I think that both of them are trying to achieve the absolute truth. And probably the final absolute truth is somewhere in a unity of the two, I would say. But yes, they are definitely different in the way they go about finding the truth. Yeah. Okay. So now, yeah, let's go. We raise the hands. Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Okay, well,
Why did I choose you? No, why did I choose your argument? I mean, I do think that both of our arguments are very good, and I don't really agree with your argument, obviously, but I still think that objectively your argument is somewhat stronger and even harder for a person to counter argue, I would say.
Yeah, it's not even my argument. This is something very common on the internet.
Of course.
But yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on.
So I have a problem with Messiah, and the whole concept for me is pretty wrong, because on one hand you have a God that is trying not to intervene, but then he makes an exception for this and he sends one Messiah to actually make the change, but he still doesn't make the change substantially enough so that we can all believe. And that's not even coming to the second Messiah that is supposed to judge us all, right, according to the Bible.
Yeah.
So I have a beef with the Messiah, I would say, a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, I would say that there are two things that God in a way struggles with, even though it's not very proper to say struggles, but okay, let's just put it that way. On one hand, God wants to allow us to be free. And because of that, whether we choose to reject him or to join him, let's say, accept him, he has to let us free to do so. So that's on one hand, but on the other hand, God's desire is for everyone, of all of his children, as a loving father. His desire is to for us to attain happiness and utmost joy, let's say. And we cannot do that if we are rejecting God, because that's the way we were designed. And so God has to work somehow with humans to restore us from what was the fall, the human fall, to a place where we can actually finally embrace Him. And that only can be done through His indirect intervention. And that's why I think it seems confusing, but it's because He has to respect our freedom while He does that. So he cannot just intervene and at any given time he could put 1, 2, 3 messiahs, and at any given time the messiah can come. There are conditions that have to be met because he's trying to respect our freedom, and also because Satan is out there.
I guess that I have still the same kind of problem, that I think there's an intervention in this, and it's just the scale does not fit this kind of loving God that wants to persuade everyone that, like, what is the ideal way to live, and the way he does it is very confusing.
Okay.
At the very least.
Yep. Okay. My second argument is that the second law of thermodynamics strongly hints towards the universe having had a beginning in time. So the second law of thermodynamics states that entropy irreversibly tends to increase over time. And this, since science has observed that at the beginning of the Big Bang, let's say cosmic inflation time, that the entropy was extremely low, it strongly hints towards the fact that there was a beginning in time for the universe in which time, space, and matter came to be.
All right. Well, I do agree with what you said, actually. I
Okay.
didn't see anything that was, for me, for now, related to God.
I get it, yeah.
So I do agree.
Okay. So now we raise. 3, 2, 1. Okay. So now why did you choose to raise me?
Well, for now, I feel like the argument does not necessarily stand for either side, and it's just a factual thing. So
Okay.
if it's an argument, I think I might as well use it for my own
Case.
side of things.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
So my third argument is the confusion. I don't think that if God exists, he gave any kind of clear guidance to humans.
Okay.
Nor can I find it in Bible, or can I find it in one of the messiahs, or anything else that is left on this earth for me to be guided in the right way. If anything, it is as confusing as can be. And this strongly to me hints that the plausibility of a God is at least questionable.
Yeah. Okay. I would say that from my point of view, because of the beginning of time for, let's say, for humans, when humans came to be, there was the human fall, according to the Bible. That was the major reason why we fell into ignorance, both like intellectual ignorance and, let's say, spiritual ignorance. And from that moment on, God started working, as I said before, respecting our freedom of will in a certain sense, so not directly working on us, but somehow indirectly, to help us regain that knowledge. So we have advanced over time. It's clear that we have advanced over time in knowledge, both like spiritual and physical knowledge. And the point is that, though, in all of this, there is also Satan in the picture that tries to confuse us more and throw us off, because he's working against, of course. The third argument is the cosmological argument. The premise of this argument is that everything that had a beginning in time had a cause. Now, because in the second argument we have established already that the leading theory would be that the universe had a beginning in time, the conclusion, logical conclusion, deductive reasoning would be that the universe had a cause. Now, because this cause existed before the time, space, and material did, we can argue that this cause had to be timeless, immaterial, and spaceless. Moreover, we can argue also that this cause had to be extremely powerful. Now, if you put all this together, you can definitely start to see how it really comes into fitting closely the characteristics, some of the main characteristics of the biblical God.
I like this argument, especially the first part. I think, again, I agree with you, but I do have a slight problem with the ending, which kind of suggests that it does perfectly fit into this monotheistic God or into this kind of view of the God. But I feel like there's a big leap done before there's actually any evidence for it. So this is what I don't like about it.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, basically, let's say that like the personal aspect and some other characteristics of God, we would need to go into other arguments to make that to let's say cover that leap, like you called it, and we might actually do it for our future videos. So it might be good material for
Interesting.
future videos. Yeah.
Should we vote?
Yep. 3, 2, 1. Okay.
Okay.
Good. So we don't need to speak here. All right.
All right. So now we've got through the arguments. I think it's very important to understand what do you stand for, what are you doing actually here, and because we don't hate each other,
Yeah.
even though we disagree on things.
We're
So
good friends. Yeah.
yeah. So tell me something about you, so we understand what is this about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm Nicholas, and as you know, but I'm a member of the Unification Church. I was actually brought up into this environment, so by my parents, they are also members. And but from when I was 15 years old until well, it's ever going still today, I have been studying and putting a lot of effort into seeking the absolute truth. So regardless of my belief, of my parents' beliefs, I have been looking into Christian apologetics, into other monotheistic main religions. And after a lot of research, but so far, because things can change, of course, I came to the conclusion that the revelations brought by the founder of the Unification Church, Reverend Samya Moon, are the ones that come as close as ever to the absolute truth. They're not the absolute truth yet. I would say that still there is always room for improvement, for coming closer and closer. I don't want to be close-minded into saying, "Oh, this is the absolute truth. That is not the absolute truth." But yeah, that's a bit of my background, I would say. Yeah.
So interestingly enough, it does sound like you have a similar approach as science has, because you say you change over time. Like there's not a
Yeah.
set amount of rules. I actually know this religion quite well. My parents, they raised me into it, but around the age of 11, 12, I started to find some things that not necessarily with this religion, but with God himself, there are some questions that were not easily answered, and they led me astray from there. So, but I do respect the fact that you brought me here, and the fact that you are willing to challenge yourself with these kind of questions, because it is very tough. I feel like you are in a rough position to challenge these things back, and
In a way.
yeah. Okay, so what do you think that what interested you the most? Like which of these arguments kind of resonated with you?
Yeah. Okay, so I would say that the animal suffering for me sounds like the one that needs to be really tackled. Not that the others are not good, but I think that that's the one that also is very very much brought up in general by many other content makers, let's say influencer or whatever.
Yeah.
But so I would like to respond to that. And I would start by saying that as I said before, I do believe that there is a difference between humans and animals. I already explained a little bit why, but I would say that also biblically it is written that God made us in His image. God doesn't say it's not written that God made animals and us in His image. It says just we were made in His image. So Reverend Moon also takes this into saying that the animals and the rest of creation are definitely not made in God's image, but somewhat they still resemble God. So he basically says they're made in symbol. Let's just put it that way. They're not made in direct image of God, but in symbol. So they do have resemblances because they resemble us as well, biologically and in many other ways, behaviorally, I would say in some ways. But they are made in symbol. So this already makes it clear in a way that we have different positions within the created beings and also purposes. So I believe, as I said before, that animals were made with a purpose of being of spiritual, physical guidance towards us. How can I argue that? I would say 3 points. Through animals, we are able to learn 3 things, maybe even more, but let's just say these 3 things. One, we are able to learn what we should do. So we can see in the animal world a lot of examples of things that are good to also practice in our lives. Protecting our neighbors, the people of our family, loving our spouse, taking care of our children. These are things that certain animals can show us, that we can learn from certain animals. So through animals we can learn
But
certain
can you learn
behaviors.
as well, like the negative side of like eating your neighbor or something like that?
Well, I guess that God's heart is for us to avoid going through that and having at least a way that we can prevent doing doing
Mm.
certain things, I guess. But then the second point would be that we learn what we shouldn't do. So animals also show, we can see in the animal world a lot of things that are wrong, racism, so to say, discrimination of sorts. Of course, on lower levels, because I don't really put animals like on a moral level. But in any case, you can argue that there are, like, of course, killing the weaker for survival. Like animals do things that the humans, they also could do, and in some cases they do, but they try to not do, because they can see these. They can learn from it, from what we can learn from the animal world, that those things are wrong by observing it. So and
Well,
that,
but
yeah,
they are very natural in the nature. Some of the things, of course, the eating of each other.
yeah,
I mean, they are made to
yeah.
eat meat. Some of them. So how is this connected? Because to me, it seems like even this would be pretty confusing. Like which based on which animal you would be watching or region where you would live, you would have a different kind of conclusion to how you should behave.
But I'm not saying that that's the only way. Okay,
Yeah.
obviously we have our own conscience in a way, and our own soul that indicates to us what is right and what is wrong in a way. Although it's not always aligned with the absolute morality, we could say. But anyways, that's another topic. But the
There's a lot to tackle.
yeah, yeah. But the point is that through animals we can at least learn some of these things. Not all of them. Not We don't base everything we do, everything we choose to do, everything we deem to be right or wrong based on what the animals do or don't do. I'm just saying that they are a very important factor through which we can learn what we should do, what we shouldn't do. In a way, you can imagine, for example, many when people behave in a way that they don't have any self-control over their actions, over their emotions, over their will, they become people who follow just their instincts. In a certain sense, they become like animals, you know? And there is a reason for that. I think that because God put animals to show us what happens to humans also in some ways, when they choose to not have any self-control of any sort, any discipline, let's say, of any sort, and they end up just following their instincts like animals, and that what can lead that is terrible things. Of course, it can lead to terrible things. And the third point, sorry, forgot. The third point is that we also improve through animals.
Mhm.
So over time, we have improved technologies of many kinds just by observing nature. Let's say you observe how the hawk is structured in a certain way to go so fast in so few time, and then all of a sudden you have the idea of making, let's say, an airplane in some way structured in a certain sense that it resembles that aerodynamicity or whatever it is. But yeah, the technology science has also improved a lot through animals and through nature, not only animals, through the creation in general.
I do agree, but I don't see a connection in these particular things. Like definitely, uh, I mean, this is all connected to another topic, which is evolution
Yeah,
in a way.
yeah,
So
yeah. But my point, I guess, the point I'm trying to make is that the purpose for which animals were created was to give us this kind of guidance
mhm.
to us. And because God had this purpose in mind for the animals,
But
the
sorry, why
yeah.
why didn't he have a purpose for the animals to learn from humans? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
who?
We'll get to that actually.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Point is that because he chose animals to have this purpose, then this was sort of a condition that I would say made it so that animals have had to be how to be made the way they were made. Because if they were made the way they were made, they wouldn't be able to achieve that purpose. Hmm? Let's say God had that design, that purpose for animals, and that's why animals couldn't be made in any other way. Hmm?
Wait.
And
So, but
yeah,
So the animals, according to this, if I understand
Yeah,
well, they were supposed to from the beginning be in pain because the nature itself, as you say, is supposed to be made in a way where you have the bears, you have the wolves, and you have the prey. Then you have the predators, you have the prey,
yeah,
which obviously creates some kind of
yeah,
pain
yeah, yeah.
or
Well,
suffering.
yeah, yeah. I mean, first of all, let's say that suffering is something that, in a way, is also can be soul building to a certain degree for us too, and for animals too. So I'm not going to argue really that there shouldn't be any suffering or pain in general. But let's say that I would also
But this
not
is a kind of
yeah
suffering that results in death most of the time, especially in nature, because for
yeah
humans now, it doesn't seem like it in this era, but
hmm
even like a few thousand years ago or 100 years ago,
yeah
or even 100 years ago, if you got some gangrene or some kind of small blister or whatever, it can result in death.
yeah
And this is the same thing for these
yeah.
animals.
But there is humans in the picture, and my conclusion to this point
Hmm.
would be that in the same beginning in the book of Genesis, that one of the three main commandments that God gives to humans after He creates them, Adam and Eve, is after to be fruitful and to multiply. The third one is to have dominion over creation. So this is something that the humans were supposed to achieve, but clearly because of the fall, were not able to achieve. So the point is that God made humans in His image so that they would be God's agents, and they would basically bring what they receive from God, the love they receive, the care they receive from God, into the creation. What does it mean? It means that humans are meant to not have dominion in the sense of be dictators over animals, but have dominion in the sense of taking care and and give to the creation the same love that they receive from God as their agent in a way. And you do the I guess that as a parent, I feel the same way also towards children. Not that they are animals, but the point is that I also feel like I am God's agent towards my children, and I'm supposed to give to them the love and the guidance that God gave to me in a certain sense. But the point is that there is hope for animals. I'm not saying that things should be as they are now, because the way that things are now, the animals are left to themselves, even worse, are very badly treated by us. So we even
Yeah.
cause worse things.
Yeah, we are definitely the biggest problem of
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
yeah.
So, beyond logic, why do you believe personally in God? Do you have some kind of experiences? Did He bless you in some ways? So,
Yeah, that's a funny way to put it. But yes, I do have some experiences. It's very hard to describe when we experience God, but I do actually believe that um, as much as you can go into the logical aspects, and you can bring as much evidence as you can to point to the fact that the leading theory would be that God exists or a cause exists. Um, you have to also, in a way, overcome that and have an actual experience to really know. You know what I mean? Like, for example, we can speak about love a lot, about what love is, how it feels to be in love, or things like this. But you cannot truly grasp and know love until you actually experience it. And love is immaterial as well, of course. But no, like nobody that has experienced it truly would deny its existence. You know, and that's why I feel the same way in a certain sense. I mean, a higher sense towards God, because well, okay, I'll just try to describe how it felt to me in certain situations in life, especially when I, let's say, made some kind of also internal preparations, conditions, I worked hard or things like this. At some point, it I happened to experience God in a very strong way. Like basically, I start feeling embraced by a strong energy, very warm and very loving, and I really feel like it's too much. You know? Yeah, it sounds weird, but I feel like it's too much. Like I don't almost deserve this much
Mhm.
love, this much energy, this much attention. I don't know how to explain it, but it feels like unbearable almost for my in a good sense, unbearable in a good sense. So I feel like every part, and then really physically I start feeling like every cell of my body is like tingling, like when your arm goes numb or something like that, but like they start tingling, like they come alive. And yeah, and then usually just tears come down, but of gratitude usually, I guess. But yeah, tears come down uncontrollably. So that's the type of experience in a way that I
Sounds
have.
very intense,
It
like
is.
almost
But
like torture.
yes, but the funny thing is that it happened also in very random times. Sometimes I was just like doing the dishes, listening to some music, and all of a sudden it just
Wasn't
hit
it
me.
just the water splashing from the dishes?
Yeah, I guess.
But one thing that also comes to mind is there are people who, perhaps, as you said, you don't deserve it. They deserved it more, but they don't have these kind of experiences. How would you explain that? Because it's something very personal. Imagine, for example, I tried to get this kind of experience. I don't think I really got it, but
Yeah.
the question is, I don't think that I deserved it, but I think that more than you, let's say.
Yeah.
But I do think that there are some people who may feel like this
Right.
sort of guilt or
Okay. I would say it's a very good question, actually. So I don't know if I have the answer, the utmost answer for it, but I would say that we each are made uniquely, and we are not all the same. Clearly, we are all unique, but each of us somehow represents some aspect of the characteristics of God, and this is why some of us will have like a natural push to follow faith and also to receive experiences of some sort on a spiritual side, while others will have a bit more struggle, but on the other hand, they will have other strong points in their character. Let's say their logic will be very good, they will go into reasoning a lot, they will be very handy people, and of course there can be all types of combinations, okay? But my point is that some people receive somehow this, we can call it the gift of faith, and some don't, naturally. But let me just put it that way. I don't believe that that means that you cannot reach that. I actually believe that anybody can reach that, but that some people have it easier, more natural, and some people need to put some effort. Just like I need to, if I was just a person that has a strong faith, I would need a lot of focus and effort into like putting a lot in reasoning and logic of things uh, until I actually get to be able to have it. And maybe I will never get to a good point, but I might get to a decent point. I'm sure that this is true, but I think that the opposite also is true. So even on a spiritual aspect, if you don't have that naturally, you still can work on it. But it takes definitely more effort. And I think that the people that reach that, starting from a state that they don't have that, actually are in a way more valuable. Not more valuable. Like it's what the effort that they need to reach that makes it even more almost deserved in a certain sense. I would feel like.
well, it seems like from how you explained your experience that you basically stole from everyone else. You know, he
No, no,
used
no.
all his energy on you.
No, 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 no. I mean, I do have this, way, partially at least, this gift of faith, I think, because that's how I could experience God in my life. Uh, but I don't think that, for example, on the logical side, on the reasoning side, I naturally had it. I had to work on it. Like I said before, from when I was 15 years old on, I had to work on it a lot. And it still needs a lot of work, clearly.
Well, we all improve throughout our lives. I think something that comes to my mind that is very interesting because I would say that I am more leaning maybe to the side that God doesn't exist, or I have a lot of doubts in my heart.
Yeah.
But I also would say that uh, one thing that just keeps coming back to my mind is the fact that we do have this story, right? It actually exists in the world, and many people throughout history were discussing God. It is here. There are maybe a lot of people like you that had some kind of experiences,
Right.
and at the very least, I would say that if there is such a good being as God that really wanted to give us this experience, however much it sucks sometimes,
Yeah.
but it is still a gift no matter what. And therefore, we should at least try to understand and maybe help this kind of being because I don't think it gives you any negative side effects that you believe. You know, most of the people that I've met who believed in God, if anything, I felt some more warmth from them and maybe understanding. Of course, it depends, but in my experience, and I do think that the moral background that it gives you to your life is in most cases positive, right? So if anything, it kind of seems to be worth it, and the eternal life, not in hell, sounds better than the
Yeah, of
opposite.
course.
So, all right, I thank you for today, and it was fun. I think we both learned something.
Yeah.
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 And I hope that we can bring some very interesting topic next. The topic, also some topics. But
Yeah.
some topics would be good.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. And then I guess subscribe to the channel, but the second Advent podcast. Thank you, guys.